Nice touch.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being patient with me. I apologize. I'm running about 5 minutes late. I'd like to call this meeting in order for the Village of Deerfield Board of Trustees, January 21st, 2025. Roll call, please.
Mayor Shapiro.
Here.
Trustee Berg.
Here.
Trustee Benton.
Here.
Trustee Goldstone.
Here.
Sorry. Trustee Jacoby. Trustee Metz-Childers is absent. Trustee Oppenheim.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I would now like to ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could have Pastor Richard please lead us in the pledge.
Love to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming to the meeting tonight.
Absolutely.
And one of the reasons that we're anxious to hear from you is all the wonderful successes and yearly and annual giving that you guys do at your church. It's a great event, and it helps so many people. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Richard Mumjian. I'm one of the pastors at North Suburban Church there on Lake Cook and Waukegan. And I'm grateful to be with you to just briefly share about Project Share this last year, 2024. It's our 21st year as a church packing food baskets for those in need. We packed 1,440 baskets this year, which means that in 21 years, 24,940 families have been served with meals.
Wow.
Awesome.
What was that number?
24,940, just shy of 25,000. We're grateful.
Wow.
Yeah, praise God. So this year, to fill those 1,440 baskets, we raised $74,000. People brought canned goods and secured donations. That week is very busy, full of work, setting up tables, rollers, unloading all the food, inviting volunteers to pack with us, and then loading all those baskets into trucks where they were sent all around Chicagoland. We partner with many on-the-ground organizations such as Youth Services of Glenview and Northbrook, CASA, Family Empowerment Centers, Lydia Home, Trinity International University, El Puente Nuevo Food Pantry, New Church of Joy, Restoration Ministry, and Deerfield Township. And Mayor Shapiro, you've attended Project Share the last couple of years, and just want to let you know on behalf of our congregation how much that means to us. And as a new Deerfield resident, having just moved here in May, I felt very proud that my mayor was there to support and actually willing to get your hands dirty and serve shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of Christians just down the road. Very grateful. It's a high value to us as a church at North Sub that we aren't parasites on the village. We place a high priority to be good neighbors. And so Project Share is one way that God has led us to that. It means so much to have the support we've had from the village and its leadership. So anyone who hasn't been a part of Project Share is certainly welcome to join us this year in 2025. It's the Saturday just before Thanksgiving. And if you don't want to wait that long, we are hosting a food packing event April 4th and 5th for a nonprofit called Feed My Starving Children, where we'll, Lord willing, be packing and shipping over 100,000 meals to children facing starvation and malnourishment in under-resourced parts of the globe. And so thank you again, Mayor Shapiro.
Pastor, you guys are more than good neighbors.
Well,
You're good souls. You're contributors, and you're wonderful human beings. Thank you for everything that you do.
absolutely. Thank you for your support, and I'm grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
Minutes of the previous meeting, January 6, 2025.
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. All the ayes have it. There are no opposed. Motion carries. Bills and payroll.
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Benton.
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone.
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby.
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim.
Yes.
Trustee Berg.
Yes.
Motion passes. To our reports. Report 2506, consideration and action on the Plan Commission's recommendation on the request for approval of a special use for self-improvement facility for the Ultimate Ninja Academy at 775 Waukegan Road in the Deerfield Village Center Planned Unit Development.
Plan Commission held a public hearing on December 12th, 2024 to consider the request for a special use for a 2,733 square foot Ultimate Ninjas Academy in the former T-Mobile retail space at 775 Waukegan Road building in the Deerfield Village Center Shopping Center. The indoor training facility is designed specifically for children ages 9 months. I'm just thinking about that.
Yeah.
9 months to 7 years, and will consist of child-focused obstacle courses, play areas, and activity zones tailored to the different age groups. The main use of the space will be for structured ninja classes, open play sessions, birthday parties, and specialized camps aimed at fostering physical, social, and emotional development. The business will operate daily from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and peak business hours are weekdays from after school 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and afternoons and weekends. The Plan Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval, and we have from the Plan Commission, I see is here from the Plan Commission in case there are questions from the group. And I know the petitioner's here to present, and Your Honor, we talked about the parking concerns and some of those things early on, so perhaps we could ask the petitioner to present how they will deal with the parking flip over, busy times, all those things would be,
Yes.
would be
So
great for the
whoever's
board.
here on behalf of the petitioner, if you guys could maybe come forward and talk to us a little bit about your plans and maybe key on some of the concerns about parking.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jen Brody, and I will be the owner of this new business in Deerfield. We're really excited to join
Can you
the
just maybe shift over? There you go.
Oh, yep.
So you're in front of the mic.
Yep. Oh,
no,
sorry.
as long as you're in front of the mic.
excited about this new business in Deerfield. You covered a lot of the bases. We are a children's gym focused on social, emotional, and physical development. A great space for kids to come after school and on weekends to get some of their wiggles out and learn some new skills. One of the areas I know that has been a concern is the parking. And we won't be taking up, I think the most important part about our parking situation is we won't be taking up as many spots as or more than any of the other businesses in this parking area. We are typically a drop-off or a place where a parent can come and bring their child or a group of children, which a lot of parents carpool, and then they can either go park their car or leave the children with us and come for a pickup.
I can give. I'm Stuart Kantoff. I'm the broker for Jen, and I've worked on several other Ultimate Ninjas facilities. They've got one in Glenview. We just opened one in Naperville. Got one going on in California, all over the place. To give you some of the pertinent numbers, the special use requires, after going through the calculations, 12 spaces. The retail that was there before required 14 spaces, but let's get down to the spaces that they're actually going to use. Peak, and again, their peak hours are off-peak hours for the center. And I've spent a lot of time there. In fact, I just came from Starbucks. I was there for 3 hours. After the noon rush, which is not their peak hour, it's about half empty. But let's go to the peak hours that they'll have would be weekends for birthday parties, and we calculate that there could be 5 staff, 20 patrons, plus 20 patrons / parents, which is a total of 25 people there at a time. Let's add 10 more to be conservative. That's 35 people in the space at once. Half of them at least are kids. They're not driving. And of the half that are kids, historically, since they've been doing it for 8 years, at least half of those are carpool. They stagger the classes so that there's time in between classes. And the way they've designed the space, which you can see on the plans that we got, we can click to it. There is a designated drop-off. Their reception desk is in front, so it's not like kids are going to be walking through the parking lot clamoring to get in. They don't accept people unless it's here's my kid, we've got your kid. If there are carpools, the way they've done it in the past also is they sign up for carpools, so they can't just say, I'm here to pick up Johnny. That's all prearranged. Mm-hmm. But getting down to the way the parking works out, and I'm going to go through the chart again. Right in front, there are 3 15-minute and 5 30-minute customer parking spaces directly adjacent to their front door. Those will be utilized for real quick drop-offs and pickups. If necessary, their employees can park east of the apartment building, which is an almost completely unutilized parking space. So if that's necessary, you're all of a sudden taking the maybe 12 cars that are shuffling in and out at any given time and knocking 3 off of that. So it really is going to be no more demanding than the T-Mobile that was there previously. I mean, if there are any specific questions, we're glad to answer them, but we've got a lot of experience how, are the bigger locations work, which are in Glenview, Libertyville, Naperville, Indianapolis, St. Louis, California. I'm missing some, but we see how they work. We see how the carpooling works. When parents do stay, they'll likely park, go visit Starbucks, visit Chipotle, maybe get their hair done, buy a sofa, whatever it is they're doing. But we don't believe, and we have evidence to indicate that the parking is not going to be a big draw. And parents will figure out what to do. If they have to park all the way by the bike shop on the far south end where those spaces are usually vacant, they'll walk their kids in. Parents are adaptable. They figure out how to make it work. But we'll open to any questions that you may have.
My question had to do with, because especially the younger kids, when they come and the parents will pick them up, sometimes the parents will come and wait. And do you have a way to know who's out there waiting so that they can package up the children and get them out there? Or do the parents just sit and wait until the child comes out?
That'll be a little bit more, when we get closer. What we've done in the past is typically we'll have a staff member that'll be at the door and would be walking the child to the car for the adult.
Okay, that would satisfy me, because if you get there early and you just sit there and wait,
right,
it takes up a space and then somebody else can't use it.
Right.
I think you're going to have to do a fairly rigorous education process with your parents,
right,
in terms of picking up and dropping off, because at the current time the restaurant is not being utilized. It's my understanding that restaurant will be reopening at some time in the near future. And from 4 to 7, which is your prime time, is also prime pickup time at a restaurant. So there may be a lot more traffic than we're seeing now. I do recall that there used to be more traffic, when the restaurant was there. And I don't doubt, there's a synergy there, and we do this with most of our parking lots with shared usage. And you're right, there are spaces all the way by the bank and by the bike store, but it takes some education to let people know that, and to know that there's a flow, they can go over there. My concern would be that we have people sitting in the drive aisle waiting for the children to come out.
I can speak to that specifically. They had their first location was on Montrose in California in Chicago. They had no parking whatsoever. There were problems in the beginning. What this really becomes kind of a community of parents and patrons. And at the time, and I think you're very, because of the way that parents sign up for classes, they get emails, and you can also put signs in front. But what they did is they said absolutely no more parking and waiting on Montrose in front of the building. and the parents took to it. I can only say from experience from that location, which was the worst parking situation that they had, and they did absolutely educate the parents because they want to be and are a benefit to the neighborhood,
Right.
not a draw to the neighborhood.
And we can tell you from experience that safety is the most important thing.
Right.
And it will be for you as well as for the parents. And traffic will be a big issue for you. And I'm talking about the traffic of the parents to come pick up the kids.
Yes, and I
So-
think, I was a first grade teacher for 10 years, and I worked at a school in the city, and dismissing kids, 24 of them every day to an adult, is the most stressful part of your day, honestly. Teaching reading and math was easy. It was making sure that they got to their parents, so I take that very seriously. So I will work with the parents and figure out, with our parking, the best way to get everyone home safely and not suck up parking spots as we're doing it.
As Mary said, drive aisles are kind of narrow there. There's a 45-degree turn just north of this space, and it kind of makes for congestion without this additional situation. So I think it will be incumbent upon you to be a good neighbor with the other neighbors there to make sure, on a day like today, nobody's going to want to walk from the bank to there to pick up or drop off a kid, but in order to avoid congestion and other problems, things like that have to be accounted for.
Part of this is not your doing. That parking lot is a mess. And
It's tight.
It's
tight.
Let's just say it's tight. And so that's not your fault. The aisles are tight, the turning's tight, that's not your fault. But it makes us more attuned to what's going on there and what you're bringing there. I'm glad you're bringing business. So I think there are 3 things I would ask you to do, 4 things I would ask you to do. One, I would ask for your employees to park to the east.
For sure.
Yep.
And I would even ask whoever's going to consider this, have that as a condition of this approval. Secondly, I would also like you to educate your parents with whatever newsletters or whatever education piece they get regularly about getting in, getting out, hours, being careful, whatever. And we're happy to give you some bullet points on what would be in that announcement.
Okay.
And the third is, I think you mentioned that there was someone outside kind of helping traffic flow.
I mean, that was, the idea would be have a staff member that would be, running kids out to the cars. and
Yeah,
making sure
I'd
that
like you to start with that.
Yeah, okay.
And if we find, it's not necessary, fine.
Right.
But this is going to be a little bit of an adjustment. I would also like to ask you guys to come back in 6 months and let us know how it's going,
Okay.
so that we can address other adjustments if we need to. But so those would be 4 things.
Okay.
And if you're amenable to those 4 things, I'd like to see whether whoever's going to move on this can include those as conditions.
I do have one comment.
Yeah.
When Roots came to us, we had a lot of discussion about the parking and staff members and going in and out. And I have a lot of concerns with you having a staff member going back and forth. I think, and I know there's congestion there, but I personally think for safety, the parents really should have to park and go in and get their kids. And then they escort their kids to their cars. You got a lot of high school kids that stop at that Starbucks at 4 o'clock after high school. You've got young drivers, and that worries me. So I hear what your plan is, but I really want to make sure that that's
You know
heard.
what might be the best thing is marrying kind of both of them. Having maybe my older children that are capable of walking with mom and dad, have their parents park, and maybe my
Edna?
15-minute parking can be for my younger
Would
that
you-
I'm
would
really
you call
holding
Babs
hands
on
to the
her
car
phone?
right in front. Maybe it's a
No,
merriment
yeah,
of
you're
both
on
of
mine.
those together. I
You
think
have
it
her
is
number?
going to be, something we're going to have to work on a little.
Right.
Yeah.
Get a feel for it. So carpooling is another thing that I know is a huge. There's a lot of things that are going to.
So I would say if people are forced to park, we're not going to have the backup. in the parking lot waiting for a kid to come to them. I do think, and I no disrespect, I think it's unrealistic if I'm driving 3 or 4 kids to expect me to walk 3 or 4 kids to the bike shop from there. That's just not happening in Deerfield. I raised my kids here. I'm telling you, it doesn't happen.
Yes, but they weren't ninjas.
Of course.
These will be ninjas.
Ultimately.
I'm just saying, realistically, my point is that this needs to be really thoughtfully, and I agree with what the mayor
And
commented.
even walking through the parking lot is difficult sometimes for adults, not just
Correct.
adults with a crew of children with them. So it's going to take some creative thinking on your
Right.
part.
Yep, and I mean, for sure, I would never have, right in front is those 15-minute parking, and that would be the only one that I would be walking anyone to.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the rest of it, I think it is going to be a little, probably something we'll just have to work with and see
Yes.
if, you know, I don't want to like automatically make this be like parking's going to be our biggest problem. It may not. I'm hopeful if we are busy, you know, but it's something as we go. I think it's important we have a plan. Like the mayor said that we would have, you know, an idea of how to manage it. But I do think there's going to be a little give and take in what works with the times and what the parking lot looks like at different times of the day, and you know what actually our schedule looks like. And
So we're going a little bit on faith on this.
yeah.
And I think we're willing to do that with some caution.
I think what you want to make sure that the 6 months, which is one of the caveats, is 6 months after they open.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously. Give it that. But we can say I worked with almost all of their other businesses. They're an A-class business. It wouldn't work
I
out.
have no doubt about that.
If they were, but what I'm
I'm
saying
not
is,
worried about the business. I'm worried about the drivers.
No,
The
in
parents.
educating
And
their
the
drivers.
parents, yes.
In making sure the kids are safe and in making sure there's a positive point of contact for drop-off. In more harrowing situations.
Well, that's
They did it-
that's
they did
good
it.
history. Let's hope that history carries over here.
It has
So if there's does anyone have any other discussion about that?
That's all I want
All right,
to say.
so I would entertain a motion with those conditions if they're
I would-
acceptable.
I would move to accept the report with 2 additional conditions. One, that all employee parking take place east of the building structure. I don't know if there's a better way to describe that parking area by the township office.
Apartment buildings.
And number 2, that you come back before the board in 6 months after opening to readdress any parking concerns that might take place at that point.
Can we have number 3, that you guys inform and educate parents on
And you copy us on those
and
education.
copy out,
Yeah.
because we need to see that. We don't need to approve it, but we need to see it.
And to see that it's been done, right.
On drop-off, pickup, parking, et cetera. So Larry,
That
would you be willing to
that
amend
third
that?
item would be included in my motion.
The customer education. And Ben will be preparing an ordinance for the next meeting that would include those conditions, right?
And come back in 6 months.
Yes, he
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Right.
I'll second.
With the conditions, I was going to say, I'll second with the conditions as well.
Well, she already seconded it.
Okay, so the recommendation with those 4 conditions has been moved upon. If it's approved, then we come back in 2 weeks for a formal ordinance, which would show these
List those
conditions in
things, right.
writing, and then we would. Right now, we're taking up the recommendation with conditions. Okay, just so you know what the process is, and then we come back in 2 weeks with
Do
an
they
ordinance.
come back in 2 weeks?
No. But we would give you the courtesy, I think, do we send out the order? Can we send out the ordinance in advance?
We want you to be here in 2 weeks, so the language is understood, so that everybody feels clear about what the
I think that's a good
conditions
idea.
are.
I think you're
That's
right. So come back in 2 weeks. We'll have another round at it, but we want to make sure that we are all on the same page. So with that, there's been a recommendation. There's been a motion to approve the recommendation with 4 conditions and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Goldstone?
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby?
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim?
Yes.
Trustee Berg?
Yes.
And Trustee Benton?
Yes,
Motion passes. So we'll have the ordinance prepared, and present it to us for formal adoption in 2 weeks.
And we'll try to get that to you as soon as we can, so you see the formal wording.
Prior to, so
Yes.
Prior to-
there's
prior
a
to-
day or two
for
or
sure.
three
Right.
to absorb it. And, okay.
Absorb it, because we want to make sure that you consent
We
to
wanna make
the
this work.
conditions. Yep.
And we
Thank
want
you.
you to be successful.
Right.
We do.
Thank you.
It's a great use.
Consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, item 2505, an ordinance amending section 268 of the municipal code of the village of Deerfield as amended regarding the acting village manager. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Jacoby,
Yes.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Yes.
Trustee Berg,
Yes.
Trustee Benton,
Yes.
and Trustee Goldstone.
Yes.
Motion passes. There's no old business. Under new business, item 2503, an update on 1411, 1415, 1417, 1419, 1425, 1435 Lake Cook Road, and a proceed at your own risk declaration. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. There's no formal action needed tonight on the proceed at your own risk declaration, but staff does want to provide an update on the subject property, given that the scale of it, 1411 to 1435 Lake Cook Road, 37.5 acres. The owner does desire to demolish the subject property. This property is approved as a PUD, originally dating back to 1982, and the owners at this time have not requested an amendment to that PUD, but they will have agreed to enter into a proceed at your own risk declaration to proceed with the demolition, even though that would not be then in the strict conformance with our zoning code. So in the proceed at your own risk declaration, they would indemnify the village, and then the agreement also stipulates certain conditions. Some of those would include that they would have to come back to the village for an amendment to the PUD if they don't have zoning approval for their plans of redevelopment by January 1st of 2027. We hope to have it in place. They hope to have it in place, but if not, then they would have to come back and amend the PUD for the park-like setting that they will be pursuing as part of the demolition. The demolition permit has been applied for, but it's still under review. We're trading comments. We're trading comments particularly on the engineering plan for that, so we're getting close. But in any event, the demolition permit would not be approved and issued until after this agreement is recorded against the property. With that, we also have the demolition contractor, Omega. Michael McMahon is here tonight. He can speak to some of the logistics around the demolition, the duration, the notification to neighbors, their experience with this type of work. So Michael's also here to speak with that. But I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll ask Mike to come up and speak as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
If they're demoing it, is it going to be like a pile of dirt like that was behind the SAC Center for so long? Because this is kind of in a more prominent area. So I kind of want to make sure that it's not going to look like a nuisance.
Yes. So what we have in concept at this point, and nothing's approved yet, but the northern portion of the property, so basically everything that you'll be able to see predominantly from Lake Cook Road would be park-like setting. So where the buildings are today and then in front of the buildings would be your grass-like setting. And then there will be a portion of the property that would contain spoils that would be stored on the site and fenced in, a screened fence that we're really hoping is not visible from Lake Cook Road, but it will be stored along the tollway. Mm-hmm. And then there will be asphalt as well that's there in the parking lots, and some of those elements will stay. Part of that is actually dust control, so that it's not all dusty this summer. And they're going to reuse a lot of those materials when they go for redevelopment. So rather than being forced to haul it all the way and then bring new material in. So, but in short, it's the most prominent portion of the property, the northern portion of the property. The things that you're going to see from Lake Cook driving by will be restored to a grass-like, park-like setting.
Okay. How will it be screened, the spoils? I know you said where it's going to be located, but could you explain the screening?
Yes. You guys are going to screen it, right? Is it you or Orion that's screening it?
Well, we'll put up dust screen.
Okay, here, come on up. But the screening will be I believe it's a 4-foot fence that they're going to use with screening, like
plastic.
Yeah, like a material on it, so you can't see straight through the fence, and then the spoils would have to be stored at a height below the height of the fence.
Okay.
So that's the short answer to it.
Okay.
Did you want to speak more about the?
Mike, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what we can anticipate with the demo.
Sure. My name is Mike McMahon with Omega. We're here on behalf of the owner of the building. They cannot make it today because of weather. So basically, like Andrew said, the engineer that's been working with the village already is going to be under our umbrella. So we're going to work with them to get the rest of the drawings finalized and approved. As far as the windscreen, the site will be fenced, and then there'll be like a mesh liner that goes along the fencing that will help mitigate any dust, and it'll block the vision of people walking or driving by for the most part.
It'll be metal fencing with mesh, so it will prevent children, pets, whatever, from climbing in there.
Correct.
When would you expect it to start, and how long will it take?
The project right now, if we get approval within the next week or two, it'd probably start from there 6 to 8 weeks because of the disconnects. We're working with ComEd.
Utilities?
Utility disconnects. If those happen faster, then obviously we're prepared to start quicker. The
So
duration
you're thinking maybe middle of March-ish? Is that maybe?
maybe depending
Maybe.
on
Okay.
ComEd and
Okay.
no catastrophes
Yeah.
with weather and stuff and lines down. We have
Understood.
no control of that.
And then how long will it take?
With 4 to 6 excavators, we're looking at 5 to 6 months in total, just depending on the scope.
It's
Summer. That's April
Till the
to
end of the
October.
year.
Spring,
Spring till,
early fall.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there.
So we're eager to get them started. I know they're eager to get started. Ownership's eager to. So we are all eager to get this started sooner than later, so we can be as much ahead of the summer as possible. This is a great time to start demolition, so that's what we're working towards.
There is one property in that area, Embassy Suites, which will need access in and out. Is that going to impede the use of the hotel?
It shouldn't, because I think that drive that goes through there, we'd have 2 separate fences for the parcels.
Okay.
So we'd leave that open,
Okay.
so that wouldn't be a problem on our end.
Will you just make sure that it doesn't? I know you said it shouldn't, but we'll
Yeah.
work with you to make sure that
And
it
that's
doesn't, okay?
And
Yes.
it's a public roadway, so we own. So they can't close that road without
Okay.
our permission. We own that road.
I just don't want to impact the only business that is left.
No, certainly. And then Amley Residential's right there as well. We've been communicating
Correct.
with them.
Right.
The owners will, I don't know if Omega will send or the owners will send it, but there will be a letter that gets sent out prior to the start of this work to the neighbors from them, as well as any village communication we want to do to supplement that. But they will be obligated to send a letter directly.
What
to
about
those neighbors.
designated truck routes?
Yes, we've spoken about the designated truck. Again, nothing's approved yet, but in this case, I think we're at an advantage using Lake Cook Road.
Yep.
But
You
we
bet.
will stipulate that no residential streets can be used. So
Right, nothing
we will-
across the street, nothing to the
correct.
north.
Yep.
And we're going to try to minimize that with, like Andrew said in the beginning, with maybe milling some of the asphalt, leaving that on site, so you're going to have less truck traffic.
Okay.
And then if any of the concrete and masonry could be repurposed and crushed, we could leave that stuff, so that's going to be less trucks leaving and coming back into the site as well.
Andrew, does the village have any requirements to mitigate the dirt and the mud leaving the site, like tire washes, things of that nature?
Yes, we often deal with that, and we will force them to come back with a street sweeper or something of that nature if they're trailing mud out of a site. I don't know if Bob has any additions on that, but that we deal with regularly at residential construction or other things like that. So,
Is that on the developer's time?
oh yes, yes.
Well, it's nice there. You got the frontage road too.
Yeah.
So
You
you got
bet.
the frontage road that's going to help support that. But yeah, like we dealt with other locations, we'll make sure that they clean up. And they
Yeah, we typically leave all the pavement into the last thing, because we don't want the trucks and everything be running through the mud and going out, so we'll leave the pavement.
And I'm sorry, Mike, and like we're doing with Pulte, that will soon start its demolition. Communicating with neighbors and the businesses, surrounding businesses, is key.
Yes, we will. So village can supplement the communication, but we will require ownership to send a letter, particularly in this case, Embassy Suites and Amley Residential.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But of course, the other neighbors as well, Oracle's too. So
Okay.
Is there going to be fencing around the access road to the hotel? I'm just thinking they're not going to want their guests driving through a construction site to go to a nice hotel. Is there a way to mitigate the sight lines of the demolition for those customers?
I would think we'd be able to do that because you've got a public road that kind of intersects the site. You've got the 2 buildings to the west, you got the 4 buildings to the east, but it's a public right of way in between. So I think, to answer your question, yeah, you got to be able to separate those by fencing.
And we'll talk with them about which direction they're working, west to east or vice versa, and then what we'll ask is that the security fencing get pulled back as they move forward. So the buildings on the west, for instance, those will all be grass park-like setting. Right. There'll be nothing left there because that's too visible of a location. So if we talk about doing those buildings first, restoring it to grass, and just getting done with the western portion, then focusing on the east. That way, you don't feel like you're driving through a canyon of construction to get to the hotel. So those are the kinds of things we can put in the specifics of the permit once we get to that level of detail.
And then I guess we would do seeding or grassing in the fall, which is a good time to do it, right?
Yeah, spring and summer, and there'll be dust mitigation efforts. Not at that point, not with the demolition contractor, but with the construction contractor or the owner, because that can get dusty itself.
Okay.
So we will be focusing on dust control with the owner on that portion of it. But in the short term, it's going to be dust control around demolition, of course. And so maybe you can speak a little bit about your mitigation efforts, dust or noise or other. Dust is usually the biggest one in this case.
Okay.
So, like I said, the site would be fenced with the windscreen. That'd be the first step. Secondly, we'll use wet suppression. So as we demo, we'll have either laborers with fire hoses wetting everything down as we wreck, so those no visible emissions. And then the trucks leaving the sites will be tarped, the garbage loads and stuff, so that will be tarped. And then we will leave pavement in place. And we'll clean it as needed if anything gets tracked out. We have street sweepers on our machines that could clean it, or buckets come through, or skid steers, any mud or anything, dirt, will get brought back into the site. So those are the measures we typically use on all our projects.
Are we going to have someone on site to make sure
things
are done correctly?
We will. So the next agenda item will be bringing that for the board's consideration, and yes, then we would have a third-party contractor on site for the demolition and construction as this moves forward. So we have direct oversight.
And again, that's at the expense of the petitioner.
Yeah.
It seems to me, though, that given the size of this demolition project,
It's a big deal.
it is a big deal, but we're fortunate in having it laid out the way it is. There is a lot of access into there. There's a lot of space. You have the opportunity to take a whole lot of the spoils just straight to the back. And it seems to me that this could be done with a minimum of disruption to the surrounding property. There's no, other than Amley, but they're not even that close.
Right.
We are somewhat fortunate in the way this site is laid out, given the enormity of this project. So I'm very hopeful that all this can be accomplished with a minimum of disruption to people.
Yeah, so again, there's no formal action tonight on this item. This agreement can be approved administratively. We did want to make sure the board was up to date on what was to come. It's a very visible site, and I see nodding heads. We just want to make sure we're all at least going in the same direction and proceeding this way.
Right.
And then at different milestones in the agreement, if they don't come forward with that redevelopment plan, then the owner needs to come back here and amend the PUD to be consistent with what the physical conditions would look like out there.
Whatever happens.
Questions?
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution to approve an agreement for Phase 3 engineering services for 1411 through 35 Lake Hook Road, the demolition of that.
Thank you, Mayor. Same property. We've heard a bunch of your concerns about the demolition. The engineering department is geared up and ready to help and oversee construction, or demolition, I should say, of the site. As is customary, and Kent mentioned this, it is customary for the developer to pay the engineering fee for us to have full-time engineering supervision on the job site.
during demolition or during construction. And so we are prepared to do that. We have, earlier this year, or I would say earlier in 2024, we did do qualifications-based selections and interviews for engineers of this sort that manage this sort of project. We did select Gaybold Hamilton as one of those, and others as well for other projects that we have going on within the village. But the way we're planning to phase this is to have Gaybold Hamilton manage this site, the Slith site, and then the Lake Cook Crossing site. So there's economy of scale there, and as their inspector is on the job sites, they can bounce from one to the other, and there's the economy. They're charging by the hour, so instead of doing one inspection in an hour, they're doing 3, and it's a lot more economical that way. Again, not our cost, but the developer's cost, and we're passing that along to them. Many of the concerns that you have brought up in your questions in the last discussion are things that we think of regularly, and are things that, as we go through demolition or construction, we have discourse with either with the board or with neighbors or with residents, and we tweak things on the fly as we go. But a lot of these things that we've taken note of, and we'll work towards meeting the desires of the village board and our residents that we have that are living nearby. With that, as I mentioned, we did do qualifications-based selection, and Gaybold Hamilton gave us a price of $84,675. This is part of the 3 projects that we mentioned. The way this generally works is the developer is doing their work. We have Gaybold Hamilton as an extension of our staff. They're on the site daily, if not full time, and they report to us. They document everything. They implement the changes that we want them to implement, and then they invoice us for their work. And we turn around and we invoice the developer for that cost. And that's a normal. It's a process for us to go through in developments like this. With that, entertain any questions that you might have.
Questions from the board?
Your Honor, I would like to ask a couple of different things. Given varying weather conditions that can take place out there, BJBE, high school are immediately east and prevailing winds, right? If something's going on, are we in touch with those guys, and have we set up a system to be in touch with those guys in case something's going on?
The public in Public Works means that we talk with everybody, and part of the neighbors. The neighbors are part of that, and so we do plan to communicate with them. I don't know at what level we've communicated with them to date, but I assure you that we will be communicating with them regularly. We will be communicating with Oracle, with the schools, with AMLE. I'm sure that the tollway is not going to be a stranger of ours. If some of the dust and debris starts to spill over onto the tollway, I am sure they will be tapping, knocking on our door. So this is just like any other project for us, even though it's not our project. We plan to communicate a lot, and that's one of the things that I think we do really well.
And I think as long as the communication systems are set up, that was the point of my question.
I've always felt it's really important to communicate, whether it's Hazel Road or whether it's this or Pulte.
Lake Cook, Deerfield, all those things.
Absolutely. So please, I know you do it. Please know it's important, to communicate to businesses and the residents, AMLE, et cetera, about what's happening, they can expect, who they can call if there's an issue.
If there's a beef, right?
Yeah. Because it's going to be 6 months of a disturbance.
Yes, sir.
And so we just need to let them know.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
With that, I request or looking for authorization from the village board to execute the contract with Gaybold Hamilton Associates in the amount of $84,675. This is a ballpark figure, and it could be less, it could be more.
Given time requirements and
exactly, weather, time requirements, etc.
Right.
Anyone want to make the motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Oppenheim,
Yes.
Trustee Berg,
Yes.
Trustee Benton,
Yes.
Trustee Goldstone,
Yes.
Trustee Jacoby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Items for discussion by the mayor and board of trustees. First, Jessica, great job tonight filling in for Jerry. We appreciate your help. I have a couple of things. One is the groundbreaking last Thursday at the senior living facility. It was really cool. I mean, it wasn't just a groundbreaking that you're in and out in 5 minutes. It was an acknowledgement. There were local and state leaders there. There was the development team was there. It was a really nice event, and it was very cool and nice stuff to eat too. But it because of what they did for the groundbreaking shows me how much meaning they have for the future development for our seniors. 147 units, as you guys may recall, and I think they said an 18-month build out? I can't remember, but it was a nice event. Two other things: we've had some really dangerously cold weather the last couple days. Today, yesterday in particular. So I want to thank Public Works and Police for their service, especially during these cold days. Appreciate you guys. And then yesterday was the Martin Luther King holiday. And I just want to acknowledge his legacy, his commitment to equality, fairness, civil rights, and offering a voice to those who were not heard and who may not be heard. So I just want to acknowledge the holiday and Martin Luther King's contributions during his short life. So, anyone else want to say anything? Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meetings adjourned.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.